Ian Huntley entered Britain's prison system in 2003 as the most hated man in the country. The crimes that put him there shocked the entire nation, and that nation's rage followed him through every cell block, every transfer, every wing he was ever moved to. Another inmate threw boiling water at him during an attack. He was attacked with a homemade weapon that left him seriously injured. 2 attempts to take his own life. And then on a February morning in 2026, inside a maximum security prison workshop, he was violently assaulted with a metal bar. This video is going to walk you through music, everything. The attacks that tracked him across the system, the man responsible for the final attack, and the question that refuses to go away. How did all of this happen inside one of the country's most secure facilities? Before we get into the attacks, you need to know why so many people wanted this man dead. In August 2002, Ian Huntley, a school caretaker in the small town of Soham, Cambridge, murdered 2 10-year-old girls named Holly Wells and Jessica Chapman. He killed them inside his home, disposed of their bodies in a remote ditch, and then stood in front of television cameras playing the role of a devastated neighbor while a nation searched for 2 children he already knew were gone. In December 2003, he was convicted of both murders at the Old Bailey and sentenced to 2 life terms with a minimum of 40 years before he could even apply for parole. He would not be eligible until 2042. The judge made it clear there was no realistic expectation that Huntley would ever walk free. That name, that face, and what he had done followed him into every prison he was ever placed in. Within the prison system, there's an informal but well-understood hierarchy. At the very bottom of it sit those convicted of crimes against children. That is not a rule written down, music anywhere. It is simply the reality of how prison culture operates, and it means that child killers enter the system with a target already attached to them. For Huntley, that target was larger than almost any other prisoner in the country. His face had been on every television screen in Britain. His name was synonymous with betrayal. A man trusted enough to work inside a school community. A man who had stood beside grieving families and looked cameras in the eye while knowing exactly what he had done. Prisoners are aware of who they are sharing a facility with. They read, they watch the news, they talk, and from the moment Huntley arrived inside the system, other inmates knew precisely who he was and what he had done. Being housed, eating, or working anywhere near him became, for some, a point of principle. Prison staff moved Huntley regularly in attempts to manage the danger around him. But transfers do not erase reputations. They simply deliver that reputation to a new audience. In 2018, leaked recordings captured Huntley in conversation with a friend. After 15 years of insisting both deaths were accidental, he finally admitted he had deliberately killed Jessica Chapman to stop her from raising the alarm. The Wells family dismissed the claim without ceremony. They had never believed a word he said. In the years leading up to 2026, sources close to the prison described a man in visible mental decline. Huntley had reportedly become convinced his food was being contaminated. He had stopped eating meals from the prison kitchen entirely, surviving on items he bought from the canteen himself. The only things he trusted, the composed figure who had faced television cameras in Soham, was long gone. In 2005, while being held at HMP Wakefield, one of Britain's most secure Category A facilities, Huntley was approached by a fellow inmate named Mark Hobson. Hobson himself, serving time for a double murder, delivered a single sudden attack. Boiling water, thrown directly over Huntley's body. There was no warning, no altercation beforehand. Hobson simply got close enough and acted. Huntley suffered serious burns and required medical treatment. He survived, but what generated a second wave of public anger was what came next. Huntley applied for compensation over the injuries he had sustained. The man who had taken music, 2 children's lives, was seeking financial redress from the state for what had been done to him behind bars. The application went nowhere of real significance, but the act of making it, the framing of himself as a victim, earned him fresh contempt from both the public and fellow inmates. It would not be the last time he took that approach. By 2008, Huntley had been transferred to HMP Franklin in County Durham. Franklin is a maximum security prison that houses some of the most dangerous convicted criminals in England and Wales. Inside the system, it carries a blunt, informal nickname, Monster Mansion. The transfer did not make Huntley safer. On the 21st of March, Music 2010, a convicted armed robber named Damon Fouch got close enough to carry out what many Music had discussed but few had managed. Using a homemade blade, Fouch slashed the left side of Huntley's neck, a serious neck injury that required extensive medical treatment and more than 20 stitches. 21 stitches were required to close it. As prison officers moved in to restrain him, Fouch turned and asked a single question. "Is he dead?" "I hope so." He later told authorities he had considered Huntley a notorious child killer and expressed no regret whatsoever for what he had done. Huntley survived, and once again he applied for compensation, this time reportedly seeking £20,000 for his injuries. The public reaction was exactly what it had been 5 years earlier. But the message from inside Franklin was also clear. Despite close monitoring, regular movement between wings, and ongoing observation, the danger around Huntley was not being reduced. It was a building. In the days leading up to the 26th of February, 2026, something happened inside Franklin that shifted the atmosphere on Huntley's wing sharply. He was seen wearing a Manchester United shirt. To anyone outside the prison walls, that might seem like a minor detail. Inside, it was anything but. The image of Holly Wells and Jessica Chapman in their matching red Manchester United kits taken on the last afternoon of their lives is one of the most recognizable photographs in modern British criminal history. Every man in that prison knew it. The sight of Huntley wearing that shirt was experienced by other Music inmates, according to sources, as a provocation of the darkest kind. Tensions rose sharply. The mood on his wing shifted. 8 days before his death, Huntley wrote a letter to a female pen pal. Music. He told her he was sorry for not writing sooner, that he had a lot on his mind lately. He would never write another letter. On the morning of Thursday, the 26th of February, 2026, prisoners at Franklin were directed to the prison's workshop area for a waste management and recycling session. Huntley was among them, and in the recycling section of that workshop, a man named Anthony Russell made his move. Russell was 43 years old and serving a whole life tariff, the most severe sentence available under English law, meaning he would never be released under any circumstances. In 2021, he had been convicted of the murders of Julie Williams, 58, and her son David Williams, 32. He had also murdered Nicole McGregor, 31 weeks pregnant, raping her before killing her. Her body was later discovered in Woodland near Leamington Spa. Anthony Russell had nothing to lose. He approached Huntley with a metal bar made from workshop materials, and he attacked Huntley with a metal bar. Reports indicate Huntley was struck repeatedly during the assault. The assault was severe. By the time officers intervened, Huntley was unconscious and critically injured. Music. As officers restrained Russell, he reportedly called out, "I've done it. I've killed him." The Great North Air Ambulance was scrambled. Given the severity of Huntley's condition, Music, he was ultimately transported by road under armed guard to the Royal Victoria Infirmary in Newcastle. Inside the prison, according to sources, the workshop descended into chaos. Inmates reacting, officers scrambling, a full lockdown. Doctors at the Royal Victoria gave Huntley a 5% chance of survival. Brain scans revealed the full extent of the damage. Reports emerged that the direct blows had left him blind. He never regained consciousness. He was placed on life support while decisions about his care were made. Brainstem tests confirmed what the scans had already shown. By early March 2026, doctors assessed Huntley as being in a permanent vegetative state with no prospect of any recovery. On the 6th of March, the ventilator was switched off. On the morning of Saturday, the 7th of March, 2026, Kevin Huntley was confirmed dead at the Royal Victoria Infirmary in Newcastle. He was 52 years old. He had served just over 22 years of a minimum 40-year sentence. Legally, the next Ofcom decision about Huntley's life support should have fallen to his only daughter, Samantha Bryan, 27 years old. Samantha had not known who her father was until she was 14. She discovered Music, the truth while working on a school crime project, and recognized the name. She had reached out to Huntley at one point, looking for some kind of connection. He had rejected her. When news of the attack broke, Samantha spoke publicly. Her words were not measured. She said she believed there was a place in hell waiting for him. She said she thought he had got exactly what he deserved. She said she would like to shake the hand of the man who had done it. She wanted no grave, no marker, nothing in the world that acknowledged he had ever existed. The decision about switching off the ventilator ultimately did not fall to Samantha. It fell to Huntley's mother, Linda Richards, 71, who traveled from Lincolnshire to be at his bedside. She described him as unrecognizable, and she confided something that few parents should ever have to say out loud, that part of her hoped he would not recover. The death of Ian Huntley raised questions the prison system could not easily dismiss. Franklin is a category, a maximum security facility. It exists precisely to contain the most dangerous people in the country under the most controlled conditions the system can provide. And yet inside its workshop, a 3-foot metal bar had been fashioned, sharpened, and concealed without detection. A man known to be a constant and serious target had been placed in a shared working environment alongside one of the most dangerous prisoners in the country. Former prison governor Ian Huntley commented publicly that the safety failures at Franklin did not only endanger inmates, they endangered the unformed officers, managing extraordinary conditions on the public's behalf. Huntley was not an isolated case. In October 2025, convicted child sex offender Ian Watkins was murdered at HMP Wakefield. A month later, Cal Bean, convicted of killing a toddler, was also killed there. By 2025, England and Wales had recorded 7 prison homicides in a single year, a significant rise on previous figures. The question that keeps returning is not a comfortable one. What music obligation does the state carry toward the people it despises most? And the practical failures here: improvised weapons inside a secure workshop, dangerous proximity, inadequate monitoring, demand answers that go well beyond any individual prisoner. Ian Huntley is gone. He died in a Newcastle hospital bed on life support after more than 2 decades of violence, isolation, and accumulating hatred inside a system that could never quite keep him safe. But he was never really the story, not the part that matters. The story is 2 girls in red Manchester United kits beaming at a camera on a warm Sunday afternoon in August 2002. The story is Holly Wells and Jessica Chapman, 10 years old, best friends, gone on a summer evening simply trying to buy sweets. The failures that allowed Huntley to reach them led directly to music, reforms that have protected children in this country ever since. Enhanced criminal records checks, the police national database.